Every single day, from the moment you wake up to the time your head hits the pillow at night, there's one voice you hear more than any other. It's not your parents. It's not your spouse. It's not your friends. It's your own. And what you say to yourself, whether silently in your mind or out loud, is shaping your life more than you could ever imagine. You may not realize it, but your internal dialogue, your self-talk, is the foundation upon which your beliefs are built. It becomes the lens through which you see yourself, your circumstances, and your future. The mind is always listening. It believes what you consistently tell it. If you constantly tell yourself you're not good enough, that you're always behind, that you're unlucky, that you don't have what it takes, your mind doesn't argue with you. It accepts those words as truth and builds your reality around them. On the other hand, if you begin to speak to yourself with intention, with strength, with hope, with confidence, everything starts to shift. You begin to see possibilities where you once saw problems. You begin to notice progress where you used to see pain. Your language doesn't just reflect your identity, it builds it. This is why your self-talk matters so much. It's not just harmless words, it's the seed of your belief system. And your belief system determines your actions, your habits, and your destiny. For just 3 days, I challenge you to talk to yourself like someone worth believing in. Not as a project that needs fixing, not as a failure, not as a person who has made too many mistakes, but as a person who is capable, valuable, powerful, and full of potential. Speak faith into your mornings. Speak courage into your fears. Speak success over your goals. For just 3 days, speak life into every area of your existence. You might be surprised how quickly your mind begins to respond. You might wake up on the second day with more clarity, more energy, more focus. Why? Because you've interrupted the pattern. You've stopped feeding your mind poison and started feeding it truth. The truth is you are stronger than you think. You are more capable than you've believed. You are not your past, your failures, or your struggles. You are who you decide to become. And that decision begins with what you say to yourself. Most people go their entire lives without realizing the power of their words. They think thoughts are random. They think self-talk is meaningless background noise. But science has proven what Scripture and philosophy have always taught. Words have power. They carry frequency. They shape chemistry in the brain. They literally rewire the way you think and feel. That's not magic. It's biology. So when you choose to speak positively and intentionally, you're not just being motivational, you're engaging in the process of transformation. Try it. Wake up tomorrow and say this to yourself. Today is full of opportunity. I am walking in purpose. I am strong, focused, and favored. I don't chase, I attract. Everything meant for me is already on its way. Now watch how your mind reacts. Suddenly, the stress that usually meets you in the morning doesn't hit the same way. The fear that normally paralyzes you doesn't have as much grip because your mind has been instructed to believe something different. For 3 days, don't allow your mouth to speak defeat. Don't allow your thoughts to bully you. Don't rehearse your problems. Declare your power. Every time doubt creeps in, answer it out loud. Say, I don't receive that. When a negative thought says you'll never be successful, you say, I am built for success. I walk in wisdom. I make good decisions. When fear whispers, you don't have what it takes, you answer, I've got everything I need inside of me. I am prepared. I am ready. The voice you listen to the most will be the loudest. Make sure it's speaking truth, not fear. It might feel strange at first. You might even feel silly talking to yourself like this. But let me ask you something. Haven't you been talking to yourself for years already? The only difference is now, you're choosing to say something that serves you instead of something that limits you. You've already practiced negative self-talk long enough. Now it's time to retrain your mind. This isn't about ignoring reality. It's not about pretending everything is perfect when it's not. It's about choosing your focus. You can acknowledge the struggle without surrendering to it. You can admit there's a challenge while still believing in your power to overcome it. That's what powerful self-talk does. It doesn't deny life's storms. It reminds you that you can walk through them and not drown. Think about the people who inspire you the most. Leaders, athletes, innovators, creators. Do you think they became who they are by constantly doubting themselves? No, they practiced intentional self-talk. They had to. Confidence is not always natural, it's cultivated. Every day they chose to speak the vision, not the fear. They repeated affirmations, declarations, prayers, mantras. They didn't leave their mindset to chance, and you shouldn't either. The truth is, we live in a world that constantly bombards us with negativity. Turn on the news, scroll through social media, listen to the gossip at work. It's all noise that feeds doubt, comparison, and anxiety. That's why your self-talk has to be louder. You can't control everything that happens outside of you, but you can control what you allow inside. You get to choose your internal soundtrack. And if that soundtrack is full of faith, courage, discipline, love, and truth, then no matter what happens outside of you, your internal world remains steady and strong. Maybe nobody ever told you this before, but the way you talk to yourself is teaching other people how to treat you. If you speak to yourself with kindness, others will learn to do the same. If you constantly tear yourself down, people may follow your lead. The world reflects back what you reflect within. When you start valuing yourself, your energy changes, your posture changes, your decisions change, and those changes are loud, even when you're silent. For 3 days, be your own coach, not your own critic. Be your own encourager, not your own enemy. Remind yourself of your progress, not just your problems. Talk like a person who believes in your future. Talk like someone who's been through too much to give up now. Talk like someone who's walking in destiny, because you are. The most successful, fulfilled, and grounded people in the world are not those who never experience fear or doubt. They're the ones who refuse to let those voices win. They've trained themselves to answer fear with truth, to answer doubt with action, and to answer struggle with strength. You can be that person too, but it starts with what you say when no one else is listening. Speak to the version of yourself that's trying to emerge, that disciplined version, that focused version, that healed version, that winning version. Speak to them. Remind yourself, I am not stuck. I am growing. I am not broken. I am becoming. I am not behind. I am in preparation. Say it even when you don't fully believe it yet, because belief follows repetition. The more you say it, the more you'll see it. And don't just speak in the morning. Throughout the day, take control of your internal conversation. When you're faced with a challenge, don't say, this is too hard. Say, this is stretching me into someone stronger. When you're feeling tired, don't say, I can't go on. Say, I'll rest if I need to, but I will not quit. When you're tempted to compare yourself to someone else, remind yourself, their path is not mine. I'm running my race at my pace. Your self-talk is like the rudder of a ship. It may seem small, but it determines the direction of your life. And if you change that rudder, even slightly over time, you will end up in a completely different destination. It doesn't take years to start seeing the difference. In just 3 days of intentional, faith-filled, disciplined self-talk, you will feel a shift. And that shift will become momentum if you keep going. Let these next 3 days be your experiment. Every morning, declare your identity out loud. Every afternoon, interrupt every limiting belief. Every night, speak gratitude and vision over your tomorrow. And when the doubt comes, because it will, don't panic. Just answer it. Talk back. Your future is too valuable to let negative self-talk narrate your story. You are not average. You are not ordinary. You are not stuck. You are not invisible. You are not powerless. You are chosen. You are gifted. You are equipped. You are favored. You are here on purpose for a purpose. And it's time you started talking like it. So for just 3 days, change the conversation. Watch what happens when you do. The world may not change overnight, but you will. And when you change, everything around you begins to respond. It starts with a decision to speak life, a decision to believe, a decision to rise. Talk to yourself like your future depends on it, because it does. Most people spend the majority of their lives stuck in patterns they don't even realize they're repeating. They wake up every day and repeat the same thoughts, feel the same emotions, and behave in the same ways that keep them locked into cycles of fear, procrastination, insecurity, and self-doubt. What they don't understand is that these patterns are not just habits of action, they are habits of thought. And at the core of those thought habits is a conversation happening within, silently and constantly. That conversation is called self-talk. For years, many people have been unconsciously speaking defeat over themselves. They've told themselves they're not smart enough, not talented enough, not attractive enough, not lucky enough. They've convinced themselves that success is for others, not for them. That love and happiness are reserved for people who didn't make the mistakes they made. That confidence belongs to someone with a different past, a different personality, a different life. And day by day, those words compound like interest. Little by little, the inner voice becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, locking them into a version of life far smaller than the one they were created for. But here's the truth. No matter how long you've been speaking negatively to yourself, you can begin to shift the pattern. The mind is incredibly powerful, but it is also trainable. And when you begin to change what you say to yourself, consciously, intentionally, and consistently, you begin to create new mental pathways. In just 3 days, you can initiate a powerful shift that disrupts the old narrative and introduces a new one. A narrative built not on fear, but on faith. Not on failure, but on future. Not on doubt, but on destiny. What most people don't understand is that transformation doesn't begin with action. It begins with thought. And before a thought becomes a belief, it is first a word. Words are the bridge between what is and what can be. When you speak something, you give it permission to grow. You give it space to take root in your mind and eventually manifest in your reality. This is why the power of self-talk is so critical. It is not just fluffy motivation, it is a tool, a weapon, a seed. And when you begin to use that tool with purpose, everything starts to change. Start by observing how you've been speaking to yourself up until now. How do you respond internally when you make a mistake? Do you criticize yourself harshly, or do you show yourself grace? When you look in the mirror, do you lift yourself up, or do you tear yourself down? When you think about your future, do you speak in fear or in faith? These questions matter because the answers are writing your story every day, whether you realize it or not. Now imagine this. Imagine if, for just 72 hours, you flipped the script. What if you spoke to yourself like someone worth rooting for? What if you woke up and told yourself, today I choose strength. Today I speak possibility. Today I walk like someone who is destined for greatness. And then, when your old thoughts tried to creep in and tell you otherwise, you didn't agree with them. You didn't entertain them. You didn't argue with them. You simply replaced them with something better. Even 3 days of this can begin to rewire your mind. Why? Because the brain is not fixed. It's plastic. It adapts to new patterns. It learns new rhythms. When you change the language, you change the wiring. When you change the wiring, you change the belief. And when you change the belief, you change the behavior. And behavior is where your outcomes live. This is not just theory, it's proven by neuroscience and psychology. When you begin to flood your mind with life-giving, empowering language, your emotions begin to shift. Your body chemistry responds, your focus sharpens, your courage builds, and as those changes take place, even the small decisions you make begin to align with the new version of yourself. You might find yourself speaking up where you used to stay silent. You might take action where you used to hesitate. You might believe in yourself in a moment where you would have normally backed down. The key is repetition. Just like a negative thought repeated becomes a limiting belief, a positive affirmation repeated becomes a powerful truth. The mind believes what it hears most often, especially when it comes from your own voice. That's why it's not enough to just think positive thoughts. You have to speak them. Say them out loud. Say them with conviction. Say them even when you don't feel like it, especially when you don't feel like it. Because those are the moments where your old patterns want to reclaim their ground, but your voice can overpower them if you use it. For 3 days, be relentless about how you speak to yourself. When your mind says you're not ready, you say, I'm prepared, I'm learning, I'm growing every day. When fear says you're going to fail, you say, I might stumble, but I will rise again. I'm built to overcome. When comparison says you're not enough, you say, I am more than enough. I'm walking in my own lane and I'm winning in my own time. This kind of self-talk isn't arrogance, it's alignment. You're not pretending to be perfect. You're reminding yourself that you're powerful. And that reminder, repeated with passion and belief, can undo years of mental conditioning. You are not your past. You are not your mistakes. You are not your insecurity. You are the person you choose to become. And you become that person one thought, one word, one declaration at a time. People often think that major change requires major time. But the truth is, change begins the moment you decide to change. In 3 days of intentional, elevated self-talk, you can ignite something in yourself that refuses to go back to the old patterns. That's what makes this powerful. Not that everything will change overnight, but that you will change. And from that inner change, the outer results will begin to flow. 3 days is long enough to break the momentum of negativity. It's long enough to realize how much of your internal story you've been writing on autopilot. And it's long enough to start a new chapter. You don't need a perfect environment. You don't need a complete life overhaul. You just need 3 days of intention, 3 days of vigilance, 3 days of speaking truth and life every single chance you get. When you feel discouraged, talk yourself through it. When you feel tired, speak strength into your soul. When you feel overwhelmed, remind yourself that clarity is coming. When doubt knocks, don't let it walk in. Meet it at the door with a declaration. Say, I am rising, I am healing, I am learning, I am chosen, I am favored, I am in alignment with my purpose. This is more than self-help. This is soul help. You are retraining the deepest parts of your identity, because identity is not fixed. It is fluid. It is molded by repetition and belief. And the more you speak from your future instead of your fear, the faster your identity begins to rise to match the vision. There are people who will look at you and not understand what you're doing. They'll wonder why you're talking to yourself, why you're repeating phrases, why you're choosing your words so carefully. Let them wonder, because you know what you're doing. You're rewiring your mind. You're rewriting your story. You're renewing your strength. And one day, those same people will ask you what changed, and you'll be able to tell them, I changed the way I talk to myself, and everything else followed. 3 days is all it takes to start, not to finish, but to begin. And beginnings are everything. A new beginning disrupts the old ending. A fresh start creates new possibilities. And when you start speaking life instead of death, vision instead of victimhood, power instead of panic, you become someone different, someone better, someone bolder. You don't need permission. You don't need approval. You don't need someone to validate your new direction. All you need is the courage to say enough is enough. Enough negative self-talk, enough mental self-sabotage, enough agreeing with fear. Now is the time to speak victory. Even if your circumstances don't match it yet, even if your results haven't caught up, speak it anyway. Because what you speak consistently will eventually become what you experience. 3 days of positive self-talk won't solve every problem, but it will solve the biggest one, the way you've been talking to yourself. And once that changes, your choices change, your energy changes, your relationships change, your results change, everything changes. So starting right now, right here, you make a decision. You decide that for the next 72 hours, your mouth is a tool of creation. Your words are weapons of growth. Your self-talk is a declaration of the future you're building. And you will no longer be a prisoner of your past patterns. You are the architect of your identity. You are the designer of your thoughts. You are the master of your internal language. And the words you choose will either break you or build you. But in these next 3 days, you're choosing to build. You're choosing to rise. You're choosing to speak to yourself like your life depends on it, because it does.